I finally got my hands on some of these paints, and I am beyond excited to try them. Hi, Shanna Rowe Jackson here from Caution Artists at Play, and today I am finally going to be trying the Holbein Acrylic Gouache. This has been a long time coming. I've been wanting to try these for years, and I just finally have gotten the opportunity to do so. So I want to be transparent about this. Holbein was generous enough to send these to me to try out. However, I am not being paid to do this review. I am under no obligation to them other than to just try them and speak my truth about them. So my review of these will be 100% honest. I will definitely be open about how I feel about these. And I gotta be real with you. I'm very excited to try them, but I'm kind of hoping I don't fall in love with them, because then I'll have to buy a bunch more, and knowing my personality type, it'll be a lot. So here's praying for me and my bank account and my marriage that I don't end up falling in love and buying a crap ton more of these paints. However, I do have a good selection here. I'm very excited about this color selection. Let's get into it. So I have Scarlet, Opera, Yellow Ochre, Lemon Yellow, Leaf Green, Misty Green, Sap Green, Grass Green, Cerulean Blue, Cobalt Blue, Navy Blue, Ash Blue, Raw Umber, Burnt Umber, Jet Black, and Titanium White. The majority of these colors are right up my alley. They're the types of colors I love, especially the landscapey kind of colors. There's actually a few kind of wild cards in here that I'm pretty excited about, though. This color, this misty green, I cannot wait to try this. It's sort of it's almost like a pastel green, but when I think of pastel green, I think of like mint green. This is earthier than that. It's like, look at that. Look how pretty of a color that is. It's so pretty, kind of like a foggy green. And then we also have, on that same note, this ash blue. It's such a unique color. It's like a nice, beautiful gray blue, kind of mysterious, and oh, I'm really excited about it. However, this one, this showstopper right here, this rock star of a color, I warn you, you may want to put on some sunglasses, because this is downright blinding of a color. Look at that pink. Holy moly, I can't even. I am so excited to try this color. So what I have here are the 40 ml tubes. They are available open stock. They have a few sets, I think, of the 20 mls. They have a various range. They have a couple different sets. They have a couple different sizes. I will link their listing for Blick in the description below, as well as one for Jackson's Art Supply if you're in the UK. They have quite a selection on each of those sites. You can buy, like I said, you can buy them open stock. You can also find them in sets. And yeah, I'm super stoked. So these are the 40 ml. Let's take a look at the details of them. So I've heard through the grapevine that pretty soon they may not be calling them the acrylic gouache anymore. They might just go to straight acrylic gouache. And so I think that's why I have two different kinds of tubes here. Don't quote me on it, but I have a feeling that this is probably their newer tube design, and then this might be their older tube design. Again, don't quote me on that, but this one still says Acryla on it and this one doesn't. So that's why I think that. Both of them have obviously what it is, as the brand down here, has the name, has the number, so you can easily reorder. And then the back has the pigment information, and it also talks about the light fastness. So they look a little different on the back, but all the information is still there. Yeah, so very fun colors. I enjoy the fact that they're tubes. You've seen me review the Turner Acrylic Gouache, and most recently the Golden So Flat Matte Acrylics. And I have a feeling, though, folks, these are the ones to beat. This is the acrylic gouache on the market. I don't know why it's taken me so long to try them. And yeah, I'm excited that they're in tubes, because you saw me recently review the So Flat Matte Acrylics. Those were in jars. As you could tell in the review, I mentioned that I'm just not somebody who's good with jars. I am not neat enough of a painter. I feel like this gives me more control as to how much I'm putting on the palette. And in general, there's less of a chance of me contaminating this with the other colors. So I'm really happy with the tubes. The tube size is great. They feel comfortable. I feel like I'll be able to get all of the paint out of it towards the end of it when I inevitably use them up. And yeah, very high quality. I like the look of them. They're nice and sleek. And something else I wanted to mention that I noted is that they don't have an odor to them, which I'm really relieved about, because the So Flat Matte Acrylics by Golden did have an odor to them, which for some reason, I don't know why, I forgot to mention it in my review. I did pin it in a comment later, but that was something I noticed right off the bat with those paints. And you'll hear me probably compare these to those paints quite a bit, just because I literally just reviewed them a couple weeks ago. So those are fresh on my mind, and they're close in concept to what these are supposed to be. But these don't really have any type of odor unless I put it right up to my nose because, you know, I'm an artist and apparently I sniff paint. You shouldn't probably be sniffing your paints, but, you know, I did, so you don't have to because I love you guys that much. But yeah, the only time I notice any type of odor is if it's right up to my nose, and it's not really a daunting chemically kind of odor. It kind of smells a little bit like Elmer's glue or maybe even Mod Podge. It's very, very mild. I don't think I'll be noticing it while I'm working with them. I did do a swatch. I had kept my swatches from when I recently compared my So Flat acrylics to other paints that I have out there. And so I just added the Holbein swatch to this. And you can see it's just as matte. It's very, very comparable to the Winsor Newton Gouache and the Turner Acryl Gouache and even the So Flat Matte Acrylics. You can kind of tell, I don't know if you can see it there because the red kind of washes out, but the So Flat was definitely thinner. The Holbeins feel a lot more like regular acrylic paints. The So Flat Matte Acrylics, definitely thinner, a little bit soupy. But yeah, so, and then you can really see here when you're comparing these, they're very similar, very highly pigmented. And then here's a swatch of the Golden Heavy Body Acrylics, so you can kind of see how much more shiny these are. Even the Liquitex Basics, which tend to be more on the matte side, has a little bit more sheen than this. And so they definitely live up to the fact that they're nice and flat, very much like gouache, but they're going to be more permanent because it's an acrylic base. So you're not going to have the lifting or the cracking, and, you know, it's just going to be much more durable. So, yeah, I'm very excited. I'm going to be painting just a small 5x7. I'm going to be working on ampersand and caustic board because it's got a nice smooth surface. I think that'll lend itself really well to these paints. It's going to be a fun little flower because I want to try this pink. All right, so I'm going to get into the project. Here is hoping that I come up with something beautiful. Okay, so here we go. I am starting on my first project, and I actually ended up doing 2 paintings with these paints for this video because I really wanted to try a bunch of different techniques. So in this one, as soon as I started laying in the background, I realized that these really do work a lot like gouache. And typically speaking, when I work with gouache, I like to do it in a mixed media way. So I was kind of curious to see if these worked well with the other materials that I usually use with gouache. So later on, you are going to see me come through and add some fine lines and some pencil marks with some of the Holbein colored pencils, because I do like to use colored pencils and markers over gouache sometimes. That's one of the things that I find so pleasant about gouache, is that in their flatness you are able to use other mediums over them easily, whereas with glossy paint sometimes things just don't want to stick. And so about this time in the painting is when I realized, like, this is going to be such a fun mixed media medium, and so I wanted to see how well that worked out, and so you'll see that later on. And basically, I started out, I wet down my panel. This is an ampersand and caustic board because I wanted to see how these worked on different surfaces. So later on, you're going to see me use this on some watercolor paper as well. I wet it down first, and I put in some wet applications to kind of get a blurry background, and then I came in to do my details on top of it. And straight away I noticed that it was pretty easy to get fine details. The only thing that I kind of struggled with wasn't so much with the paints. I really think it was just how the panel absorbed these particular paints. They kind of felt a little dry, so around my edges, I had to go through again with a little bit more watered down paint to kind of straighten out my edges to get crisper lines. But I didn't notice that issue as much on paper later on, so that's why I mentioned that that might have been just the way the panel kind of was reacting to the paints. However, I still overall was pretty happy with the combination of the panel and these paints. Straight away, the first thing that I noticed about these paints was their vibrancy. Super exciting vibrancy. And it was a lot of fun because this is a nice summer piece, and so it was really great to have those pops of color. And you can get some pretty good contrast between the colors themselves. However, because these are a flat paint, inherently there's going to be a little less depth than if you were to use, say, the Holbein heavy body acrylics, where there's going to be more transparency there, because inevitably when you're able to glaze, you're going to be able to get more depth, whereas these are flat and opaque, and they are very opaque, which is great. So it's just something to keep in mind. It depends on the kinds of styles that you're using. Obviously, when you're looking to invest in a paint, you want to make sure that you are finding the paint that is right for your style. And I think that this paint in particular is great for illustrative styles or pop art, abstract styles, anything where you're going to use like pops of color and large flat areas of color, dot painting. However, you can obviously do representational work with it as well, which is what I am doing here. So it's a pretty versatile paint, and it's just a lot of fun. I was having such a great time with this. There was no pressure. I just was relaxing and hanging out and just painting a pretty picture. So let's talk a little bit about the options for this paint, because I mentioned earlier that there are sets available. They have an 18 set of 20 ml, which is called this artist set, a 12 set of the 20 ml, which is the lesson set, and a 5 set of the 20 ml, which is called the primary set. And they also offer a 12 set of 12 ml primary set. And they are available open stock. So this is what's available on Blick. I didn't look at Jackson's or Jerry's or anything else, but I figure Blick is pretty much a standard across the board. I will also link their color chart in the description below so you can see all their options for sizes, and you'll also be able to see their pigment information and light fast information in case you want to buy them open stock, because that's typically how I like to buy things. I'll buy a set initially, and then I like to buy things open stock later on. So they're, as I mentioned, they are available in 20 ml and 40 ml in open stock. And the 20 ml tends to be around $6.69, and the 40 ml is $11.77. It is a bit cheaper if you buy them in the sets, though, so you get a little bit of a discount for buying in bulk. And I think the sets, they look pretty good. There's a good variety there to choose from, and you could definitely find a great starter set that will give you an idea of how these paints work. So yeah, sorry, this goes off the screen a little bit. I had trouble because obviously it's a panel, so it slides around a little bit. But overall, the retention of brush strokes, that is something that differed a little bit from the So Flat matte acrylics that I tried a few weeks ago. And the So Flat matte acrylics, they wanted to make sure that it flattened out completely so you couldn't see brush strokes, which, as somebody who does a lot of realism, sometimes that's nice to do. However, theirs spread in a way that not only did it flatten out, it widened fine lines, and I did not like that. In this, it has a little bit more retention of brush stroke, but you don't have that same kind of spreading. It's not as soupy. You're able to get easier, like, fine lines with it, and I was really relieved to see that. Here I am adding the outlines. I thought this would just be great as, like, a graphic, almost cartoony, I don't know, comic book look. And I really like that with the pops of color. I also, as I mentioned, I come through with some of the Holbein colored pencils and go over it as well, and those went over it really great and added some really cool texture. I don't think I have a clip of that here. Something that was really interesting about this is that this bright pink is almost too fluorescent for my scanner to pick up on. I had to photograph both of these paintings, and I'll show you a clip here of what this painting kind of looked like. it washed out all the pink. The scanner did not like that pink. So I thought that that was really, really interesting. And it did the same for this one. This one has a little bit of, it's like a pinky orange that I started out with by mixing that really, really fluorescent-y pink with the yellow. And it did not like it. My scanner did not like it. And I've never had that issue with my scanner before. So I thought that was really interesting. I had a really hard time getting good images of these paintings because the colors were so bright. So that's something that's really exciting. I mean, the struggle's a little bit real when you're trying to get stuff for prints, but really it was mainly with that pink color. I didn't have that issue with the other colors. I just think it's amazing. So I'm on to my second project now. I'm working in my sketchbook with cold press watercolor paper. And this was just a simple landscape. I wanted to test how well I could get gradients with these bright colors, and it was pretty good. It was doing better, and then I went back and second guessed myself. So that wasn't a paint thing. It had a better gradient on it when I first started. But anyway, I was able to get pretty good gradients. And I wanted to do a silhouette of trees because I wanted to be able to test how well these can hold a nice fine line, and they did excellent. I am so excited about that. And the color is just so vibrant. You just can't beat it. It's definitely very flat, like gouache, and this is the sketchbook I typically work with gouache in, and so I was able to get a feel for that. But they're so opaque, and it's just so nice not to have to worry about the layers underneath lifting, and they're going to be strong because that's what acrylic gouache is for. It's supposed to have all the flatness of a gouache, but the strength of an acrylic, and these definitely fit the bill there. But yeah, so I was very happy with these paints. I'm not somebody who typically works with flat paint. I'll be fully transparent there. I work with gouache occasionally in my sketchbook, and I've worked with some other acrylic gouache. But it's not necessarily my go-to because I like to do a lot of glazing, and these are very, very opaque. However, there are times when I am looking for a flat paint. And I do think that these will be the ones I go to from now on. I just really, really love the vibrancy, and I had an easier time working with them because they feel closer to regular acrylics. So this is the final piece of the landscape. I'm going to show you here how it looked when it was scanned. It turned yellow. That was crazy. Like, it just did not want to pick up on that pink at all, and I just think that's wild. I guess I just didn't see that coming because I never work with colors that are quite so fluorescent because fluorescents aren't really light fast, but it was really fun for this project. But yeah, so overall, I had a very good experience with these. I just let things flow. I tried not to fight the flat like I did in my previous painting. I think they're great for mixed media techniques. They're great as a standalone, and I really enjoyed myself. I thoroughly enjoyed working with these paints. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.